Appreciate everybody being here this morning and taking time out to worship God and get some understanding. Genesis chapter 1, 26. Genesis chapter 1, 26 through 27. We're looking at the 7 days of creation. And if you've ever read the book of Genesis, the first thing God said is, let there be what? Let there be light. And then he goes on to create, keeps saying, it is good, it is good. And as I was studying this, I came to the realization that this could very well possibly be like a blueprint or a map in your desire to create. It's not uncommon that people would like to start a family, start a business, start to take serious their journey of faith. And oftentimes where you start becomes a question. And so we've been using possibly this 7 days as a template where to begin. Where to begin. We are on day 6 still, and we're looking at the issue where God has created plants to be like the plant of its own kind. So the plant isn't just growing, but in the plant is what? Seeds. So it says that each plant had a seed after its own kind. Then God began to create fish and birds and beasts of the field. And he said even these had the capacity to create after their own kind. But he said, mankind, humanity, you and me, he said, I'm going to make them like me. That the humankind is going to be made in my image. Made the birds like birds, the fish like fish, the beasts of the field. But whether you understand it or not, he says, you are going to be like me. But oftentimes, since we don't understand it, we kind of just keep moving on with life. And you may find out that you're moving past a very rich experience, a very powerful experience. We often look in the mirror and fix up on the outside, but we're really not sure who we are. Are you with me today? We're not sure how God looks at us. Oftentimes, we describe ourselves as something we've done or what we haven't done. But you'll find out that there's probably a great difference as far as God's concerned between who you are and what you've done. We could easily be disappointed with ourselves, okay? Or we can set goals and feel like, well, I didn't really accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, and that can bring discouragement. What can be sad is you spend your whole life trying to become something, failing to realize you already are someone in God's sight. You know, I've shared it before, you hold a little baby in your arms, it's brand new, newborn. I don't care if that baby is ugly as a mud fence, you better tell that mother that baby is perfect, it's beautiful, okay? And there's some truth to the fact that the baby is perfect. That the baby is perfect. I don't think it's an exaggeration. I think there's something powerful about somebody being able to give life. A man and woman come together in intimacy, and out of their relationship comes this fruitfulness. This fruitfulness. But sadly, somewhere along the line, after the baby is born, not only do we not hold that baby the same way, but we don't hold ourselves growing up the same way. And we fall prey to the common conscious and subconscious doctrine that we are what we've done, or we are what we have failed to do. And what if that's a tremendous misunderstanding? You ever met an athlete who knew who they were? You just can't compete against that. I sat in class, I'd always try to sit next to the smartest girl to cheat on her paper, if you look on her papers, and you could always tell my papers when they came from the teacher because it looked like somebody got shot. There's so much red marks on it. Okay? But there's always those ones that, I've shared it before. When I realized 1 and 1 was 2, I actually stood up in the classroom and shouted, "It's 2." Meanwhile, the whole class looked at me, all right, way to go. You finally caught on, huh? The year's almost over. But for me, I understood. And there's nothing wrong if you suddenly start to awaken and suddenly start to realize how God has always seen you. We're on day 6 still. And he's describing what he has made and the seeds after their kind. So there's a type of distinction that God creates in his creation. I don't know if you know it or not, but the Department of Agriculture, they control seeds. We're surrounded by agricultural land. It is against the law for you to own your own seeds. Most people don't know that. It's against the law for you to own your own seeds. It doesn't mean you can't go down to the store and buy some. What I mean by your own seeds is that you begin to plant and grow and collect the seeds from your own growth. You're not allowed to do that. You're allowed to own the seeds that come from somewhere else, someone else, but you're not allowed to start to cultivate and keep the fruit, not just the fruit, but the seeds from your own process. Your own process. I want you to think about your religion, your relationships, and your resources today, and be a little open in your heart. And I want to look at the seeds that are unknown. In Genesis chapter 1, 26 through 27, and God said, "Let me make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. And God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them." That last part, I want to read it again. "And God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them." So God did not create man in man's own image. God created mankind in God's image. Are you with me today? What's the problem with God creating man in his own image? Huh? What is the problem? Because there's a difference between God making you in his image and God making you in your own image. What is the problem with that? You say, well, I don't understand the question, but we do it every day. We fail ourselves. Huh? We fail ourselves. Or we're full of ourselves.
I don't think we're God.
There you go. There you go. So God was very careful and very distinct about when he created you. He said, "I'm going to make you like me." But since we don't understand that, we could spend our whole life trying to become something, trying to make ourselves something. You know, we all want to believe that we're the original, right? So, I hung around a bunch of, back then, there was the Chicano era and all the khakis there. Oh yeah, I'm going to be original, but I iron my pants just like everybody ironed their pants. I iron my boxers just like everybody ironed their boxers, wore the same t-shirts. Loretta magazine had the little pamphlet that taught you how to shake hands. There was nothing original about what I was trying to become. But deep down inside, I felt like, what if I am different? What if there is something unique about me? What if God sees me in a way that I have no idea how he sees me? The Bible says that God created man to have dominion over all of the earth, over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the beasts of the field. I got some questions on the board. Now, and I'm asking, can we have dominion in all the earth? Now, most of us haven't been around the whole earth, but in your world, is it possible for you to have total dominion? And don't worry about answering. Just think about the question. There are things that you face, things that you've been through. Is it possible for you to have dominion over the principles of life that we all end up having to face in our world? We get consumed with the world. God's going to deal with you about your world. The world's a big place. Are you with me today? Okay, he's more going to deal with you about your world, and we all have one. We all have one. Isaiah chapter 11. I want to read that for you today. And what I want you to keep in mind, God made the plants with seeds after their kind. God made animals with the ability to have seed after their kind. But humankind is a whole other conversation. Isaiah chapter 11. The prophet Isaiah is testifying in using the illustration of a seed and a root to describe where Jesus came from, and that's what this passage is about. Chapter 11, starting in verse 1, book of Isaiah. It says, "And there shall come forth a rod of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his root. And the Spirit of the Lord shall come upon him, and the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, and the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge, and of the fear of the Lord. And shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord, and he shall not judge after the sight of the eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of the ears, but with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek on the earth, and he shall smite the earth with the end of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked." The root of Jesse, does anybody know who Jesse was? Very good. David's father. David, he was the king of Israel, and his father was named Jesse. The reason why they're mentioning this in the Old Testament, because they're telling you where Jesus came from. But they're using the illustration or the analogy of a root, of a seed and a root and a stem, that Jesus comes from this particular lineage. And it is saying he's going to have tremendous impact, that this stem and the fruit of this root is going to have tremendous impact upon the earth, and it's prophesying about the coming of Jesus Christ. I want to go back to the issue of the Department of Agriculture. Why do you think Department of Agriculture will let you buy seeds but won't let you have your own? You can go down to the store, Human Nursery, they say, sell plants and stuff, got a whole rack of seeds. Why will they let you buy that, but they won't let you have your own? Okay. You don't have to go buy seeds, they're losing out. What else? Sandra.
Because they want to control or protect the types of plants that are grown in certain places, and if you keep getting your own seed, you can, the variation can change. If you plant the seed, then some people can take that and match it with something else, and then they can end up spiraling.
Where do most of us get our produce from? What? You mean there's not some flourishing garden at your house with ripe tomatoes and bell peppers, and you guys can all go to the store? Do you ever see me there? I think not only are the answers that we're given are correct, but I believe a certain dependency starts to be created. We don't have time, whatever the case may be. And so what we want the fruit. We don't want the root. Because the seed represents responsibility. Seed represents relationship, and if you're really going to have a garden of any size, it's going to take a bit of your time, a bit of your concern. I'll watch little videos on YouTube about agriculture and how to get rid of the aphids and all these little techniques that people have. And since we live in an agricultural surrounding, I'm watching these people take plants and graft them into another plant that's not where the plant came from. And just this incredible science going into this whole thing. Most of us are removed from that process. Fry's produce section didn't exist in the Garden of Eden. Did you know that? I know it's hard to believe, but it wasn't there. That if you wanted to grow something, that you would actually have to kind of try to understand. God told Adam, I want you to take dominion over the earth. And dominion was a type of conversation about understanding. If you have understanding, you have power. You understand the process, what's involved. If the process comes under attack, you know how to counter that attack. But I almost think that the seeds are willing to sell us, and the seeds that actually are birthed out of your relationship to the process, though it's the same kind of seed, they're totally different. You can actually track seeds and by science able to tell you where that seed came from, what region it actually came from. Because like people, there's an ancestry element attached to those seeds. But we have been so far removed from the process, we really don't know how to relate to that. Sandra is saying about control. I think there's a certain thing involved. You can't do this. I didn't realize it, but a lot of these very large pesticide and seed companies will literally, not the seed companies themselves as much, but the government will send out spies to large agricultural land to find out if they're complying. Where did the seeds come for this crop? Where did they get them at? To control the situation. That's kind of crazy when you think about it. That's kind of crazy. If you study seeds, you'll find out, and I've used it in sermons before, there are gigantic warehouses at different parts of the world in different countries that are storing seeds in case there's a cataclysmic event that transpires in that part of the world. So their whole mission. And then they admitted, we're used to seeing certain products at the produce section. They're admitting that the amount of types of cucumbers or the amount of types of lettuce, there's such a vast amount, but we only are used to seeing a few different types. Because over time, they've all kind of disappeared. Over time. I want you to think about your relationships, and I want you to think about your finances, and I want you to think about religion. What if the same thing has happened? What if it's happened? We'd sit around. I grew up in a certain religion, and every once in a while, I probably with a bunch of kids. So do you think you're going to go to heaven? How do you go to heaven? And we all sit like deep theologians, and begin to, I think how many bad things did you do? I was like, we're not talking about me. We're talking about you. And we'd kind of put together and add and subtract and try to find some peace of mind with our logic and the whole thing. And what I could tell as growing up, that there was a lack of confidence about the process. That whatever we were allowed to grow in the context of our understanding was so limited compared to the reality and to the depth of what God intended us to understand. What God intended. Ask some questions on the board. Is the fruit of God's seed the result in cultivation or control? The Bible says you are a seed, that Jesus was a seed. It said, lest the seed fall into the ground and die and bear much fruit, it abides alone. That there's a process that has to happen if you're going to bear fruit, and part of that process is death. If you've had any level of success and maturity, you've had to let some things go along the line. Yes? You've had to let some things go. You've had to, you maybe wanted to hold on to somebody or hold on to a relationship, but the thing was not going to stay together. And you had to release it and to let it go. Oftentimes, what seems incredibly painful can be followed by some incredible strength if you know how to look at the situation and let yourself grow up, let yourself mature. Okay? That's a type of fruit. That maturity is a type of fruit. It's a type of that wisdom, that understanding, especially if you have people coming behind you and they're coming to you and they're saying, hey, Tia or Nana or whatever, and they're trying to get some advice, and you're able to pull the fruit of your understanding and hand it to them and say, well, you may want to consider this. You may want to decide in reference to this here. Why that? And then you tell your story. Well, what ended up happening was I thought I was going to survive this, and part of me died in that situation. That unhealthy relationship, that unhealthy decision financially, that unhealthy decision religiously, and part of me got lost. But by God's grace, there was another chapter after that death, after that passed away. And many people feel that they've become stronger because of the things that they've gone through. Lest the seed fall into the ground and die, it cannot bear forth much fruit. And if it does not die, then it abides alone. It's just a seed, and it's lost its process and its purpose. Its process and purpose. So God is calling you a seed. The word seed, as we define in the past sermons, it denotes offspring. Offspring. So that, that family, they have those kids and those grandkids, and those great grandkids, and they just keep coming. You know what I'm saying? Is the fruit or that offspring of God's seed result in cultivation or in control? One of the ways that you can tell if you're having good fruit or not, if you're in a healthy process or not, is what going on is the excitement of cultivation. In other words, you're cultivating this understanding about growth, or is it resulting in control? Can people be controlled in relationship? Yes, in a very, very unhealthy way. Can people be controlled with money? Can you be controlled with religion? So God intended us. He said, I'm going to make the birds like the birds, the beasts of the field like the beasts of the field, the fish be like fish. But this particular kind, this human kind, I'm making them like me. And he wanted you to know what the fruit of that seed looked like, and it is not control. It is not manipulation. You go to behavioral health centers and they're trying to work with people because they're struggling, and they have this, codependency, and they're saying that is not healthy. Even though we join together in relationship in different kinds of ways, we're not supposed to be grabbing a hold of each other. Please say amen. We're not supposed to do that. Does the majority, this is a good one. And we're talking about dominion in your world. Does the majority of the turmoil that you do experience happen within or without? Within, or think about the word. We go through things. Is the majority of that happening out here or in here? I would say inside. It's happening within. I will let you know that the majority of turmoil that's going on within is deeply rooted in a lack of understanding. I don't minimize your hurt, your pain, your confusion, your depression, however it's manifesting, but I want to tell you, at its root, there's a lack of wisdom and a lack of understanding. People get into a certain season of struggle, and they think there's something wrong, that there's something wrong. What do you mean? Ever been around a little kid, and I've asked this question before, and they just start crying? Little boy or a little girl, and you're asking them, what's wrong? Ever seen that? If you're a smart parent or a smart relative, and the kid is 3, 4 years old, the key is not to try to get them to make sense of it. Why? Because sometimes they just need you to grab them, give them a hug, and say it's going to be okay. And guess what? I don't care if you're 50. You're going to find yourself crying, and you don't know why. You don't know why. What's worse than the fact that you don't know why and that you're crying, you think that there's something wrong. My question to you is, how do we go through this life and not find ourselves at times feeling the heaviness of our situation, feeling overwhelmed? Feeling overwhelmed. Years and years ago, I picture it like walking in a house. I used the illustration at Lydia's funeral, but I said, if you walk into Lydia's house, the front door, you can see the back door from the front door. As I get older, I can see the back door from the front door. I can see the back door. I can see the end of a chapter. Not in some weird, horrible, morbid way, but what I'm saying is I can see it. And I could very well allow myself to start to perceive a certain level of fear and that something's wrong. Are you with me today? So I'm going to go do all these things to try to save myself. Bible says those that try to save themselves will what? Lose themselves. But those that are willing to give themselves will find themselves. It seems the opposite of the common logic of people, but the truth is there's something powerful about you understanding how things grow. Lest a seed fall into the ground and die, it cannot bear forth, it cannot bear much fruit. You know, people that know how to let go as a lifestyle or as a practitioner become less apt to become fearful about letting go of the more serious issues as we go. I sit in front of people and they're getting ready to pass away, and the whole family, young and old, are standing around them. And oftentimes the person in the bed's got to start calming everybody down. Because some people really know when it's time. And they understand, not only do they know when it's time for them, but they also understand what everybody's going through and what's happening with them. Why? Because they understand the process. They make movies where people can live for 300, 400 years. I forgot the name of the last one that I saw. It was really, really good. And the time that you have were little digital numbers on there, and they would change. And if you wanted to, I could give Gigi a year, but I'm not going to. They could give each other time. And so time was the big factor. Then they met some people that lived far away in a different city, and some people had, it's like 10 lifetimes. And everybody think, man, if I had 10 lifetimes. Well, they lived in a culture where they're almost envious of the people that have a little bit of time. Now, that's hard for us to relate. It's like being a billionaire. You know, everybody likes to look at the billionaires and say, yeah, but they're not really happy. How do you know? You don't got any money. We just like to make ourselves feel better. Yeah, but they're not really happy. I can just have a quesadilla a little bit and I'm good. Well, that steak they're eating looks pretty good too. We would have a hard time trying to understand how would more time not be awesome when we're really not sure what to do at the time that we have. You know, you're a little kid and you say, man, I can't wait till I get older. Nobody takes me serious. I get to do everything. Now you're older and you're like, gosh, I was a kid again. It's like we're never happy. What if the key is not more or less? What if the real key is understanding the process? Understanding where you are in the process. Does the majority of your turmoil happen within or without? And if the majority of it's happening inside, maybe we don't understand the process. The last question I have is, can there be turmoil without and peace within? Whereas most people are freaking out at the turmoil without, and they embrace now the turmoils within, is it possible that you're surrounded in a world of turmoil, but for the reason of your understanding, you have peace within? I think that's totally possible. Not only do I think it's possible, I think it can become a practice. A practice. It's a wonderful thing to be around somebody that looks to you and say, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. But why? It's going to be over. You know, I always talk about the Fred Sanford, how he was always having a heart attack, always dying, but always staying alive, but it's always over. He's always coming to Esther, but he never quite takes off because he just keeps living. It can be embarrassing. I'll never love again. But then you find it. I'll never eat again, but you seem to be doing okay. Seem to be doing okay. Let's look at our advantage in his image. In Isaiah 11, 5-9, Isaiah has already talked about the root of Jesse, and he goes on to say, describing Jesus as the righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and the faithfulness the girdle of his reins. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the kind, and the calf and the young lion, and the farling together and a little child shall lead them. And the cow and the bear shall feed their young ones, and shall lie down together. And the lion shall eat straw like the ox, and the suckling child shall play on the hole of the asp, where it's talking about a serpent who's wound in a coil, but the child will sit in it and play. And it says the weaned child shall put his hand, and they shall not hurt nor destroy all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. So you have these, it's often said that the peace that God has for our lives that we understand is the lion and the lamb are resting together. You have what seemingly is this predator and seemingly this fragile, vulnerable creature that is the lamb. And he's equating knowledge and peace to these two principal elements that seem totally the opposite. God uses pictures to relay principle. It is possible for you to have peace within your heart, that the issues that most people think are going to kill them, that you're able to allow that to be embraced. Not because that's what you want, because it is what it is. If we could get away from everything, if you can step aside and avoid something, fine. But the truth is, some things we're just going to have to face. The choice we have is not facing it, is how we want to face it. The problem with most people's turmoil, it's not what you're looking at, it's how you're looking at it. It's how you're looking at it. The Bible says rain falls on the just and the unjust. But it's very possible that the just that's getting rained on starts putting buckets outside and starts collecting the very thing that everybody's trying to run from. That we can take these things that instead of them being our enemy, they become our servant. They become our servant. There are things that you have been through, and somewhere, somehow, maybe you even know that person, they just went through the same thing. And it can be amazing to watch two people go through an incredible challenge. One got stronger, and the other one gave up. Because they did not know how to let this adversity find a place in their experience, since it was unavoidable. And look at this powerful contrast. This powerful contrast. Some people have told me, Chris, you don't preach on the devil, and that's why I don't go to your church. I said, well, how big would you like your devil? 10 feet tall, pitchfork, little horns, big horns. I mean, what is it that you would like? I said, if you look up the word in the Hebrew, Satan, it means adversary. Every one of us are going to face adversity. I don't know that the adversity we're going to face is going to get better by you creating such a personified darkness. You know what I'm trying to say? Because oftentimes we don't need anybody to scare us. We're scaring the heck out of ourselves. We're scaring ourselves. I believe the adversity that God has allowed us to face was supposed to make us stronger. That the pressure, that the things that we're facing, when he says, be still and know that I'm God, vengeance is mine. I believe what we were supposed to begin to practice doing. They have these Lamaze classes for women about to give children. And it always seemed a trip to me to watch people practice being still, or a woman's having a baby, she's open to Texas and here's this alien coming out of her. And the nurse is telling her, relax, take a breath. That statement sounds so opposite of what actually is going on. Are you with me today? I'm not a woman, so I'm just, from a man's point of view, I'm just glad you have to do that, not me. But it seems asking the person to relax, to be calm, it seems unreasonable. But what if there's truth in that? What if the woman that's getting ready to have her first child is having a totally different experience than Susie over here that's had 12? I don't know, Susie just dropping them as she goes and, throwing them in the basket or what's going on? I'm just saying, what if one person actually understands and that knowledge and that understanding is serving her? She's still facing the need for deliverance, but the reality is she's a practitioner and has an understanding about what's really involved, not what was scaring the heck out of her before her first birth. God had intended you to transform by the renewing of your mind from glory to glory, that you would continue to come to these places, not because he's trying to torment you, but that you would start to become a practitioner of understanding what this particular time meant, what this period goes through. And instead of becoming, your life turning into a novella and you become a drama queen, the reality is you understand, no, this is just this chapter here. To look into the eyes of an older person and they're telling you, no, you're going to be okay. This is going to work out. That's very wonderful. That's wonderful. That's why we need family, because there's supposed to be people with more wisdom telling you, no, it's going to be okay. I remember my kids getting to around 11 years old and their bones started hurting. Why? Because they were growing, But if nobody knows what's going on, can you imagine the conclusions that we could come to? A little girl starts her cycle, 11, 12 years old. If nobody has any understanding, what conclusions are we going to come to? There are stations in life, regardless of our age, that you're going to come to, but if nobody understands this cycle, nobody understands this particular chapter, what's worse than maybe some turmoil we're going through is that nobody has any understanding. And we're coming to this misunderstanding, which is increasing our turmoil. Jesus said that my people suffer from a lack of vision and a lack of understanding. The root of fear is a lack of understanding. It's not the kukui, it's not a monster under the bed. No, it's that you don't understand. You don't understand. To have people in our life that understand the process. Lest the seed go into the ground and die, it cannot bring forth much fruit. This is what the process looks like. If you're going to go down, you also are going to come up. It's not the end. Most people live their lives from life unto death. The design that God wants you to see is that the seed is going from death unto life to bear forth much fruit. If you live from life unto death, you're terrified. But if you understand the process, no, you're going from death unto life, a new chapter. And that doesn't start at the end of your life. That can start right now, because there's things we need to let go. Things that we need to let go. Why? Because God's intention was that we would grow from glory to glory. It always doesn't have to be from glory to glory. But the best we can let go. Why? To make room for a new chapter. The beautiful thing about relationship is you never arrive. People that think they've got you figured out don't realize even you haven't got you figured out. The great thing about having a relationship, there's always somebody to give to the new person that you think you're used to. Because we're always changing. It's actually insulting when you tell somebody, absolutely, oh, I know what you're thinking. That's weird because I don't know what I'm thinking. The nature of us is to continue to grow, continue to transform by the renewing of our mind. And when you get that and you have a relationship, that continues to change. There's something new in God he wants you to see. There's something new in you God's trying to get you to help you to see. To help you to see. God did not tell the fish, I want you to take dominion over the earth. He did not tell the beasts of the field, I want you to take dominion over the earth. He did not tell the fowls of the air. He said the human kind, he said, I want you to take authority. Animals think and have instinct, but humans get to think, why do I think that way? Ever ask yourself that? After you said what you just said? Golly, I just said that right now. Why did I say that? Animals think, but humans get to think, why do I think? Why do I say? Why do I do that? That's what gives you the power to have the dominion and authority. Dominion and authority. He told Adam, you have dominion. You and Eve, be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth. Take charge. I thank God for the life that I have.
Amen.
I thank God that He's given me the ability that regardless of my past when I was younger, I get to decide about the future. I get to decide. I often start my prayers with God, let there be light. That was the first thing He said, let there be light. And He wasn't talking about the light in the sky. He was talking about the enlightenment, that the light would turn on in here. And then I would say, it's 2. 1 and 1 is 2. Hallelujah. Thank God. And even though other people get it, I don't care. I got it now. I hope that you get it. I hope that you understand. Let's bow our heads.